Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Good morning, afternoon, evening from the way from the place you have joined us. A very warm welcome to each one of you. I am Divyanshu Srivastava, and I'm honored to host a special edition of Bodhi session brought to you by Polestar. To all the viewers who have joined us for the first time, the word Bodhi is derived from a Sanskrit word which means awakening or enlightenment. From the mythological reference, Bodhi is the name of the secret tree where Siddhartha Gautam attained enlightenment and became Lord Buddha. So much like that Bodhi session, we are here to design, we have designed this particular series of session to spark fresh thinking, deep insight, and meaningful conversation. It is a platform where industry leaders like Eric and more, comes in from different versatile experiences in data analytics and AI, and talk about their experiences and meaningful information. And today we'll be diving into a particularly exciting topic: how CPG business can stay future ready with the help of technology. And for that, we are joined by two phenomenal leaders whose journey have been nothing short of inspiring. Help me welcoming Eric Feirer, CIO of Kellanova. Eric has over 23 years of experience in technology leadership across iconic brands like Bacardi, Estee Lauder, J. Crew, and many more. At Kellanova, he leads the end-to-end tech strategy, driving digital transformation for the North America region. Welcome, Eric. It's a real privilege to have you on the show today.
Great to be here today.
Also joining us is Chetan Alsisaria, CEO and co-founder at Polestar. With over 20 years in the advisory and consulting domain, Chetan has led enterprise scale programs across sectors and built Polestar into a trusted partner for data-led transformation. Thank you so much, Chetan, for joining in today.
Thanks, Divyanshu. Wonderful to be speaking in Bodhi for the first time.
Yeah. So I'll start the format of the show where we'll be asking a lot of questions and then we'll brainstorm about the different areas, different trends across the CPG and the AI world. I'll start with Eric. Eric, your journey, from leading IT operations at Bacardi and Estee Lauder to driving digital transformation at Kellanova, it highlights your deep expertise in leveraging technology for the business growth. Given your experience, how the role of a CIO in CPG has evolved, what key shifts in data analytics or AI do you see shaping the future of this particular industry?
Yeah, I think that's a great first question. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining today. It's my honor and privilege to be here with Chetan, with you, Div, and looking forward to the day, looking forward to the session. I think before I go into, kind of the key shifts, I think I just want to even take a step back and talk about, what the role of the CIO in the digital function and how that's even shifted, right? I think the biggest takeaway that I can start with is that your IT, digital, or technology functions are no longer back office functions. They are no longer back office functions. For me, there's really three key areas where the CIO needs to focus their energy and their time. So one is the evolution of taking the function from an order taker to a strategic business partner. And two is really being relentless about value realization and really going after the why and making sure that we're not just doing tech for tech's sake, right? And we're going to get into a little bit about some of the emerging technologies, but let's never forget why we do it. And the third, we have a responsibility, in my mind, to create a winning culture within the IT digital tech function. And we could talk a little bit about what a winning culture is. But the role of the CIO, to me, it's no longer just a technical domain expert. So the best CIOs, the most modern CIOs, are truly business leaders, right? They're thinking like a business leader, and they're running their function like a business. I think the role also has a huge responsibility to create the next generation of leaders who act and think this way as well. One of my favorite quotes that our Kellanova Global CIO often says, Leslie Salmon, who's wonderful, by the way, she often says, you can't consider yourself a leader until you've created new leaders yourself. And I truly believe that. And I think as it relates to kind of some of the shifts that's happening, I've also had the opportunity to learn from some amazing CIOs and mentors and managers throughout my career. And, the very best ones are successful at making sense of all these tech trends and helping their company create that business enabled strategy that's going to best leverage the technology to really achieve its business outcomes. So hopefully that helps answer that first question.
Yeah, definitely. And I completely, agree with you on the point that CIOs are no more technology leaders. They are the business user who's enabling technology to the business and make it run. Chetan, you've had the opportunity to work with so many CIOs under different industries with different regions. How do you see their role evolving in today's rapidly changing digital landscape?
So I echo Eric completely. The first thing which Eric mentioned is that there are no longer two different groups like business groups and IT. Because earlier, business users used to define business process and IT used to automate those. But in the wake of AI and all the new digital initiatives, all the business processes, they are not just getting tweaked, they are getting reimagined. And you cannot reimagine those business processes without the CIOs. So CIOs are actually helping and actually leading many a times in defining and reimagining the business process. So completely agree with Eric on that. A big part of CIO's time used to go on keeping the lights on or business as usual, keeping their ERPs running and the CRMs running, etc. Now, a huge focus is on innovation and future proofing the organization. So I would see CIOs getting involved in a lot of initiatives which may not be giving them returns today, or something which is not maybe at this point in time they may not seem important, and at times they may actually seem overhead also. But those are the things which are going to define who wins and who loses, maybe 3 or 5 years from now. Another aspect which I'm seeing is newer compliances are coming into picture, and those are very dynamically evolving. So what you see now and 3 months or 6 months from now, that may change. And most of those have to do with the data side of things, the security side of things. So CIOs are playing a huge role in ensuring that organizations are compliant.
Thanks, Chetan.
These are some of the shifts which I'm seeing.
And I completely agree with you that, you spoke about a lot of things. You spoke about how rapidly the technology is being changing, how, the CEO of the role of the CIO is no more just taking care of the technology, but also making sure that the businesses are in place, the compliances are met, the future proofing areas to make sure that the POC is done successfully so that the actual implementation can be done. And I'm sure these have a direct impact on the businesses. So, Eric, referring to what Chetan said, as business undergo these kind of transformations, I'm sure the path isn't always smooth. What are some of the key challenges CIO are facing today when driving digital initiative like these, and how does it impact the role of the CIO again?
Yeah, amazing question, right? Because I think as IT and technology leaders, it's not as easy as just picking a technology and rolling with it, right? So to me, the biggest challenge is change, right? Change is the biggest challenge. It's always going to be the difference between success and failure. If an organization is ready for the change and has the sponsorship for that change and puts the energy and resources behind it, then the chances of success are much greater. And kind of along those same lines, I would say the number one challenge is the need for executive support. So I think the role of the CIO certainly is much more of a business leader, as I mentioned earlier. But having that executive support, building that coalition across all of the different functional areas across your business, and making sure you have the support at the very top of the house is critical. There is no way you can undergo any type of digital transformation or really embrace some of these changes without it. Now, Kellanova, we're very, very lucky. We're very fortunate that it started right at the very top. So our CEO, Steve Cahill, he really believes in the power of data and digital and what it can unlock. But it doesn't just stop. It doesn't just start at the CEO, right? You need those change champions really across the business, cross-functionally, to make sure that you understand what their objectives are and how the technology is going to be better enabling what they're trying to do. So business objectives and being business backed, that's always the guiding principles. It has to be the guiding principles and must be in the forefront of everything we try to do as CIOs and digital leaders. As a largely commercial organization, we're always looking to delight our consumers. So we must use that data as an asset across our enterprise, right? So ultimately, the name of the game is, how do CIOs make sure that some of the enabling tech trends, especially AI, can be leveraged and delivered as part of the strategy to make sure that we're doing things more effective and more efficient? It really is an enabler for growth and differentiation. So what is the objective we're trying, or problem we're trying to solve? How will we measure the results? And how will we communicate back to the broader organization in a way they can grasp, so we can get them behind the change curve?
So thank you so much, Eric. And while you were talking about this particular change, I understand that the change happens at two fronts. The change internally, where the strategy changes depending on the external factors. It could be regional wars, which could lead to supply chain disruptions. It could be the latest tariff war, which recently started in the month of April. Now, having to said about that, the second change is always about the people, the users who are going to use the technology. Now, for a CIO, how do you strike the right balance between driving innovation and ensuring business continuity?
Also an amazing question. So I'll start with the first thing that comes to my mind, and that's around education and awareness. So we have to take our people along for the journey with us. At Kellanova, we created a cross-functional ethical AI council, and that's helped kind of put some guardrails and provide our colleagues and coworkers with guidance on how to approach things like Gen AI, because we know we need those guardrails. We know we need to protect our company. We need to protect our people. We need to protect our IP. So we need to make sure that if we're going to win with this technology, that we do so in a responsible way, right? So how do we make sure that we have not only just a solid foundation around the data, but also the ethics, the privacy, and that's at the forefront? And how do we make sure that we're democratizing that education across the ecosystem? I think the second thing that comes to mind, you said a fast-moving consumer landscape, right? And driving innovation. So how do you create an environment that enables safe experimentation, right? Embracing that test and learn culture, making sure that courage is that main tenet. And we're lucky. When I think of our culture at Kellanova, we have what we call our culture of best, which is really around three particular activities, and that's accountability, integrity, and courage, right? So we really believe that courage is all about challenging the status quo and always striving for that continuous optimization of a process, right? So I think leaning into that a bit, we know that right now, a lot of the AI projects are not going to succeed initially, right? But that's okay, right? We want to learn from the failures. We want to make sure that we are continuing to iterate so we can unlock some of these opportunities. I think when we talk about safe experimentation at Kellanova, one of the things we're really proud of, we launched something called Curiosity Clinics. So we've given all of our corporate employees, regardless of title, regardless of function, the opportunity to explore. In this case, it's more with Microsoft Copilot. And we've had an amazing response. We've had over 10,000 people attend some of these curiosity clinics, and I'm really proud to say that many of them are senior leaders in the company who are also very interested in understanding how they can really leverage this exciting technology. So I think number one was the education awareness. Number two is the safe experimentation, and then number three is making sure we're equipping our workforce, our teams, with the ability to thrive alongside it. So how do we make sure that we're really promoting that culture of learning and staying up to date on the latest and greatest? We have a program at Kellanova called Yoda, and no, it's not the Star Wars reference, but it's the year of development always. It's an education program really focused on how we continue to upskill our IT colleagues. And, it's primed to support this AI revolution. Focusing on how do we make sure that our teams have the right technical skills, the right soft skills, and the right industry specific skills. And that's all really, really important ways that we're going to continue to address that fast moving consumer landscape.
Perfect, Eric. Thank you so much for such a detailed answer. I was about to come to you, Chetan, from the perspective of a consulting partner who is there as a partner helping organizations to grow, adopt to these technologies, adopt to these, faster evolution. What is your strategy while you're dealing a problem of making sure that the things are in shape, the business, the lights are on, and also ensuring that they're enabled with the latest technology so that they can impact do the business.
Again, I agree with everything which Eric said. These are very important. So I would just want to add a couple of things which I saw some organizations, doing. One is that operational priorities, operations things, operational firefighting always takes precedence. And when the same team does both on innovation, which is future proofing the organization, and then working on the current priorities, so one or the other gets missed. And typically it's the innovation which takes the hit. So what I've seen some organizations do is to separate these out completely, because the way you also measure the success of a thing which is already proven and working, and a thing where you're experimenting, as Eric was very rightly saying, that many of these experiments are going to fail. So when you have the same team doing it, first of all, priorities get missed. Second thing is that the way to measure the success or the productivity or whether it's working out or not is very different. So carve them out separately. On the experimentation side, I would again refer to the first point which Eric made in the previous question is align business reasons why you want to innovate. I have seen during this entire Gen AI hype, or I would say it's a genuine hype, but I have seen organizations doing anything and everything without realizing whether this is making, or even if it's successful, would it really make sense? So define a business reason for every innovation. Define a success criteria. How would you call whether it's successful or not? And align business users early. Because if business users are aligned, first of all, your probability of success increases. Second thing is that even if you fail, because experiments, there are some of them which are bound to fail, you would find them to be more understanding if they're part of it.
Chetan, that resonates so much with me. I think, when we talk about business alignment, that's got to be priority one for technology leaders, right? And ensuring that we have that. You're absolutely right. We cannot just go after tech for tech's sake.
Yeah.
We have to really have a defined opportunity or problem that's in line with your business partners, their goals, right? The company's goals. So that's so spot on.
And since we are talking about the organizational priorities and business alignment, Eric, my next question would be a follow-up to this. What are some key best practices as a technology leader you would intake to make sure that these investments and these priorities are well taken care of and they produce tangible business value?
Perfect segue. I love it. So, I'll kind of start from the beginning. If you were a leader just joining an organization, right? Priority number one is starting to build those relationships from day one, right? Like I said, when we started, right, the role of the CIO has changed. If you want to be a business leader, right, you really have to understand the motivations of your business colleagues, right? You're part of them. You're going to help enable them. So start building those relationships from day one. It's so important to not just understand the company's strategic vision, but what each member of the leadership team, what their vision is as well. So, look, I'm going to come back to what I said in the very beginning. You can't do this alone, right? You also need to develop a very high-performing team who is going to earn their seats at their respective table. So, my goal is always to empower and coach my team to make sure that they're doing that, because as a leader, you can't do this alone, right? So how does my team earn their seat at their respective functional table, right? How are they bringing the art of possible to their different areas, whether it be supply chain, sales, marketing, HR, legal, finance, doesn't matter, right? I want to make sure that all of those key leaders feel like they have that strategic partner, and that my team has that mentality of focusing on translating those business goals into strategic tech roadmaps. So it's not necessarily an art or a science. It's a little bit of both, right? So you have to kind of, I started at the very beginning talking about our responsibility to build that next generation of tech leaders. How do we make sure that we can shift the perception of the tech function while driving real tangible results that ultimately help the business?
Well said. Chetan, do you have any further thoughts to add on this?
Yeah, I think along the same lines. So initially there used to be very centralized organization with a separate IT, as I had mentioned, and then I think some organizations experimented with complete decentralized, where businesses, they were doing their own stuff. The problem with the first one was that it used to take a lot of time, so the agility was getting missed, and also many a times the business context used to get missed. And in the second perspective, what was getting missed is every function was doing things for themselves, but they were not looking at the larger picture. And in the process, their entire IT landscape was also not, aligned. It was going nowhere. It was a mushrooming system. So hybrid kind of a, architecture, hybrid kind of a team structures, where now you have got central technology, and then you would see business teams. So you would see supply chain IT, you would see finance IT. And those ITs are, comprising of, people from the actual supply chain domain, and then, technologists, and then you have got business sponsors. So that is the structure. And then the central part actually takes care of the fact that all of this, while they are doing this in individual things, and there is a context for business in these individual teams, they are still as per a overall corporate IT strategy. So they're aligned to a final goal, whether you are talking about the business imperatives, or you're talking about the tool set, or you're talking about the architectural homogeneity. You're able to maintain those. And then you would put a very strong governance on top of that. This structure is very successful if you have got a very well-defined governance. Otherwise, anything where there is certain level of decentralization fails, because the need of governance is very high, and the chances of misalignment is very high. So yes,
Yeah,
with a
getting
proper
that
governance,
operating model right, for sure, Chetan, getting that operating model right is really important, right? Because there are organizations that have decentralized models, and there are some that are more, centralized. But I think in that decentralized model that you mentioned, 100%, you still want to always have a tie-in and make sure you're doing the right thing for the company, that it's aligned with their goals, and that whatever the technology solutions also aligned with the tech roadmap too.
True, very true.
Perfect. Thank you so much for some great thoughts around it, and I'm sure there was so much to learn and key takeaways for a lot of people on the panelists today. Now, I'll change some gears from talking about the culture, the execution, and the strategy of the organization to actual buzzwords that we hear day in, day out, which is AI. So, Eric, from your perspective, how much of the AI conversation is a true transformation versus just a hype?
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for true transformation, 100%, in not only the way we work, but the way we're able to interact with the data and make decisions. So in the CPG sector, it's 100% going to help shape what the future looks like, right? And the organizations that are at least going to lean in, upskill their organizations, embrace the safe experimentation, they are going to be the ones who are going to win in this space. So when I think about the different areas where it's going to, really help change the game. New product innovation, for one, right? Whether or not we're really trying to reduce development lead times, whether we're trying to increase success in a market because we're leveraging more market-specific data to make sure we're taking into account local tastes and preferences, and making sure that we're kind of going to deliver above market top-line gains, right? That is huge for us. So also the ambition for more automation, quality control, simulation capabilities in manufacturing is another area where AI is going to just absolutely change how things are done. And then I think from a customer and consumer perspective, right? Let's just remember for a minute in CPG, at least in our case, right, we're dealing with both consumers and customers, right? For us, customers are the retailers. So how do we get an edge, right, when we are engaging with our customers, with the Walmarts of the world, with the Krogers of the world, and making sure that we're arming our sales teams to have an edge, right? So they're doing a little bit more fact-based selling or analytics on retail performance, so they can bring more of that deep insight and kind of predictive analytics to the point of the customer, right? All the way down to the store manager, right? And we're taking advantage of some of that today, but it's only at the infancy stage, right? Right now, we're arming some of our sales folks with the right tools to be able to approach their store managers with specific targeted opportunities for incremental selling. And they are very specific based on data, right? So taking advantage of that. I think POS data, which is the data that comes from our retailers, and being able to decipher that in a way that's going to identify newer opportunities, how you're doing against the competition, is also really, really important when you're trying to build that customer relationship. And then, certainly for our retail folks on the street, making sure that we are giving them the tools to do more dynamic routing. How can we make sure that they're highlighting the most valuable in-store activities with their customer counterpart and leveraging insights from the data to optimize their own sales route? How do I make sure I'm sending the sales reps to the location where the largest sales opportunity exists? So, these are a couple of examples, but the bottom line is, how does that tie back to the different opportunities, right? The size of the prize. I think there are a lot of areas around revenue growth management, certainly around planning, certainly either on the supply or the demand side, where having the right foundational technology and data in place with AI is going to make a huge difference. You're going to get drastically better, and the technology is going to help all of our associates continue to drive those results. So those are a couple things top of mind for me.
Well, thank you so much. That was pretty insightful and really talks about a different kind of use cases we have already started looking in. Chetan, you have seen the AI adoption across various sectors. And how do you see its focus evolving, and what use cases are generating the most excitement or maximum result for the organization?
Maybe, I would give certain examples which are not just impact for the organization, but I would say impact for the society overall. A big case in point is healthcare. Okay, so look, I come from a very small town in India, where healthcare availability, even availability of doctors for diagnostics, was a huge challenge. And people had to rush to bigger cities for the smallest of the things. And that inequality of availability of access would be covered with AI. So think of it, how normal things work. You would get your blood work or your tests done. You would give the results to a doctor. Doctor would correlate it to maybe 10,000, 15,000 cases which the doctor may have seen in past, and then the books the doctor has read through his or her education, and is going to correlate and then diagnose. Imagine the same thing going to a system or a program which is trained on not 10,000 or 15,000, but is trained on millions of such cases. this is going to be path breaking, which has already started happening. So there are a lot of existing programs which actually can help you diagnose, and that will make healthcare more affordable and more accessible to most people. That is one. Second thing, it can actually not always you have to go to a doctor. There is a preventive angle to it. All of us, we are wearing these wearables, devices which is tracking our basic parameters. If that data keeps going to a program and which can help you to prevent your illness, because no one wants to fall sick, so it's good for everyone. It's good for society. It's good for individual. It's good for companies, and it's good for, of course, insurance companies. So I see a lot of work happening on that side, which is going to be transformative. Personalized medicine on the healthcare side. Again, with your entire history being tracked, your day-to-day parameters being observed, and then going to a program which is trained on millions of cases, the medicines can be a lot more personalized. So this segment, I see a huge change for the industry as well as for the society. Now, if I talk about some other cases, more general cases, like supply chain as a function. So you talked, Divyanshu, you talked about the scenarios of maybe a war impacting a supply chain or a tariff impacting a supply chain. So supply chains are linked now. In global terms, the supply chains, these are, if there is a war happening in any part of the world, this is going to disrupt certain industries globally. Okay, so now with a AI program having data of suppliers, their capacity, their quality, their cost, it can help you redefine and map your supply chain dynamically. It can help you create scenarios and give you alternate possibilities even before you actually reach or hit that scenario. It can give you your possibilities and you can actually choose between those. If I talk about maybe certain retail kind of use cases, so Sephora has an app called Virtual Artist, and in India, Lenskart has got a similar app where you just put your photograph and your picture, and then you can try the glasses. Similarly, makeup was something which was so personalized, and people felt that they need to go to the store and try and before they can buy. So Sephora has come up because glasses still you just put it over there, but when you use a makeup, you are maybe changing the texture, you are changing the color of the skin. Okay, and it has to read your current color of your skin and your current texture and then give you things. So there are apps coming which are going to change your the buying buying experience of customers altogether. So these are some examples, but to answer your first question, Divyanshu, AI is definitely going to change everything. uh, as Eric very rightly mentioned, it has got the potential to change everything. Yes, our company is always doing it in the right way right now? No. So a lot of them, they are going by the hype or the buzz and doing things which they may not need to do. But if you just talk from a potential perspective, yes, it has got a potential to disrupt everything and anything that we are doing right now.
Thank you, Chetan. And that was pretty an interesting answer, how you touched upon the society and the personal side of things. I completely agree with you that apps like Sephora, Lenskart is definitely making our life easier, and so is the AI in the business world. Now, since you've already touched this upon, Chetan, that AI is going to change everything, Eric, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What are some of the trends you're seeing that CPG leaders should start preparing for now, for the future? And when you look ahead, let's say from 3 to 5 years from now, how do you see AI evolving? And what organization should do so that they stay competitive in that atmosphere?
So great couple of questions. I'll start by talking kind of from a business domain perspective first, and then I'll get into a little bit of the second part of your question, which is around the evolution. So I think job number one for us, going back to that notion of being a strategic business partner and building those relationships, you have to size the opportunity across your business domains, right? Because if you think you're going to go after every single use case or every single idea for leveraging Gen AI or AI, you'll never get it done, right? You want to make sure you're focused. So, true digital transformations obviously are going to unlock value across the organization, right? 100%. And some of those domains are going to drive value quicker than others. So, some examples, right? I mentioned earlier revenue growth management, and that's specifically around opportunities to enable like dynamic pricing optimization or post-promotion analysis. I think marketing is another domain where Gen AI is really driving better consumer insights, personalization at scale. You heard me talk about product innovation, manufacturing. So the list goes on, right? So sizing the opportunity will allow you, and when I say sizing, I'm talking about specifically, are there top line ambitions that it could help achieve? Is there productivity gains? Is there margin expansion? So sizing each of those different areas with how AI can drive it is going to help you prioritize, right? And put resources behind the ones that are going to drive the most value and start with those first. The second, and one that we haven't really talked about at all yet, is not underestimating the importance of the enabling technology platforms. So, a lot of my business partners are absolutely doing the same research and reading on AI and some of the emerging technologies that we are all doing. And we all kind of read some of the hype, and it's exciting. But let's be honest. If we don't have our data in a state of readiness to achieve that digital transformation, we're not going anywhere. And I think a lot of CPG companies tend to forget that part. They think they could jump right into the AI use case without first ensuring that the data is AI ready and it is the underlying tech platform is optimized, right? Because we do need to continue to invest in platforms that are going to help democratize and manage data, right? That's table stakes. And in order to really leverage AI to its full capability, has to happen, right? And it's not as sexy. It doesn't necessarily have the best business case, but it needs to ride alongside it, and the education around that's important. And I think the third area there is really, similar to what I mentioned earlier, is bringing your organization along for the ride, right? Treat this as a major change in how you operate and how work gets done, because it is, right? It's not just something that's going to be on the side of your desk. So, that hopefully answers the first part of kind of some of the emerging trends in CPG that we should be preparing for. I would say the evolution, right, in the next 3 to 5 years, and this is going to be really exciting, right? So as technologists, folks, we are at the forefront of this revolution. So lean into it for sure. AI will be a strategic enabler of delivering our strategy, right? It'll be an enabler, but it's not the only solution, right? So it's super critical that every project, every initiative starts with that business-backed problem. So don't start with the tool, right? Make sure that you're leveraging your business partner relationships, you're building those strong collaborations, you're working with your commercial peers, and together identify the right challenge or opportunity to see if AI is going to be the right fit for that, right? I would say 3 other pieces, right? Number 1, make sure you're always putting your people at the heart of an AI transformation, right? It can be very easy to be internally focused and only think about how the AI can disrupt the processes, but we have to look beyond that. We have to make sure that we're putting on a consumer hat. So it's not only the people at our company, but how is it impacting our consumers? Are we truly creating better experiences for them? I think the second is risk management, right? Having that steadfast commitment to data privacy, compliance. Chetan mentioned it earlier in the talk, particularly in this very data-centric era that we're in. we need to make sure that we're upholding some of those data privacy practices, and we're building trust with our consumers and demonstrating ethical data handling. I'm proud that at Kellanova, we really do prioritize this. We have a cross-functional advisory council where we do govern the AI opportunities, and it's not meant to just put bureaucracy on it, right? Because we want to experiment, we want to have that safe experimentation, but we want to make sure that our employees, our partners, we're receiving the proper training, we're understanding the AI risks, and it underscores really our company's dedication to ethical practice.
Thank you so much, Eric. I think that was really a great answer, and especially the fact that irrespective if we starting to prepare for the future, the first thing that lies is the data preparedness and the points that you touch upon, compliance, security. I think the discussion that you're referring to, Chetan also mentioned one fact around the biasness in the historical data.
Yes.
How as a CIO, and this is open for both of you, how as a partner or how as a CIO, we make sure that we goes away with the historical biasness and we leverage these technologies to make sure that we get the right results.
Yeah, and I can start, Chetan, if you want. I think it goes back to my point about making sure that your data is AI ready, right? And if there are biases in your data, you're not AI ready, right? Yeah. So making sure that your master data governance and your processes around making sure that your data is clean, it is trustworthy, it is coming from the true source. And there's been so much advancement in technology platforms that help democratize this and bring it all together, right? I'm not going to promote one or the other, but there are ways of doing it. And to me, it doesn't mean that you have to have every element of data across your ecosystem in this type of a platform. But when you're evaluating use cases, that has to be a prerequisite, right? You have to make sure that it is ready. And it could be a subset, right? Whether it be your product hierarchy, whether it be your customer master, whatever it might be, right? It might be a subset of those data elements. But if you need those data elements to support leveraging AI, that has to be the start.
So yeah, completely agree, Eric. First thing is that when your AI program runs on a biased data, it actually accentuates the bias. Do you know this, that if it's trained on a data which is biased maybe by a certain percentage, the output that would come would be biased to a greater percentage. Now, first is, of course, to get data which is more indicative or representative. So there is something called sampling bias. If you take a data set on which you are training and that sample itself is biased, so try to get the sample which is more indicative, more clean, more complete, that part of it. And then you have to use techniques which are there for the preparation, something like anonymization. To give you an example, say if you're hiring, and gender has got nothing to do with the hire. So ideally you should anonymize that so that your program is not even taking that into consideration. So there are certain other techniques at a prep level, data prep level, where you ensure that it's not the biasness is removed to the extent possible. Even after that, the history is so biased that your data would still have some level of biasness. And then in that case, you have to use other ways. First of all, you should be knowing whether there is a bias or not. Black box models, they typically, say for example, most neural networks, they are black box models. So you don't know, what it has factored in, how it has factored in. So explainable models is something which, most organizations now would want to go with explainable models. That is something which is very, very important. If it's something which is super critical and something where we believe that the angle of bias can be higher, bring a human in the loop. There should be in the process, when you are creating the process, when you are rolling out something, bring make it a point that you have got a human in the loop. And to top it up, you should have a regular monitoring and audit of the entire, not just of the entire process, but of the output as well as of the input. So the input, process, and output, there should be well laid, guidelines around it in which you should be monitoring. Yeah, these are some of the things which you can do to make sure that you are removing bias to the extent possible.
Thank you so much. It was very insightful. And while you're saying this, I was looking at the time. We only have 12 minutes at hand. And I wish we could have continued this discussion for long. But I had one question which I want to end the discussion with. And this is to you, Eric. There are so many aspiring technology leaders with us and, future ready, CIOs with us. If you have to give one piece of advice to them, it could be navigating today's digital landscape. It could be the data preparedness or anything that comes on top of your head. What would that be?
Okay, so I'll leave a couple of thoughts on this, right? So maybe it's 1+, right? So number one is don't go looking for a problem to be solved, right? Always start with that business challenge or opportunity. I talked about the need to, make sure you're building strong business partnerships. That comes first, right? And then by starting with your business challenges and opportunities with those business partners, your goals as a CIO or technology leader will align so much better with those business partners and your company. So again, don't go looking for a problem. I think if you can make those connections and you can build those relationships, you're on your way to achieving some amazing results. I think kind of the second part of the advice I would give, never underestimate the power of a winning culture and embodying that winning culture philosophy. So as a technology leader, it's so important to focus your energy on building that next generation of digital leaders. I was very lucky in my career. I've been heavily influenced by so many amazing leaders that I've had the privilege of either working under or working for or as part of their organization. And I think it's always really important to strive to have that same influence on your own team. So think about those best managers, those best technology leaders that you've had the experience of working for. Why did they make you feel that way? And how can you embody some of what they did to make you feel that way and infuse your own leadership style and create something really special? So that would be my 1+ piece of advice to future CIOs on the topic.
Thank you so much, Eric. And Chetan, sitting on the other side of the table, what is one piece of advice as a CEO of a consulting organization would you give to the aspiring CEOs who would in future would work, with leaders on the other side of the table and make their journey successful?
So I think one is what actually Eric mentioned, which is being courageous. We are living in times which are very disruptive from all possible ways. Okay, and technology is just one angle of those. So, and if I talk about companies of our nature, technology services, they are going to get disrupted heavily. And one way to look at things is to be in denial and say that this is just a hype and this is just go away, which is typically the first stage of any surprise. First, whenever you are met with something which you had not expected or something which is going to change the way you have been working, operating, thinking, behaving, your first thing is to actually say that this is not happening, or this is going to go away, but this is not going to go away. So very important is to be courageous and then create this plan that in this time, in this disruptive times, how can you actually take advantage? Whenever there is a wave, I always say that there is a big wave. Some people are going to drown and some people actually would be able to travel a bigger distance using that wave. It totally depends how you are positioning yourself along with the wave. So plan, think, look at the business priorities again. If you talk about technology services, ultimately we are, enablers to, businesses. We help them achieve their business goals. So we have to align our business and our function and the way we operate according to what the market wants. There's huge opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chetan, and thank you so much, Eric, for so much of insightful answers. I'm sure there was so much to learn from today's content. to wrap things up before we move on to the question and answer, from the viewers, we'll do a quick, fun rapid fire round. And just to put your disclaimer, you need not to think about this. The first thing that comes on top of your head, you need to shoot that. Okay?
Sounds like fun. I'm always ready for some rapid fire.
I'm sure. Okay. So my first question is one book or podcast every CIO or CEO should check out.
Okay. You want me to start, Chetan?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. One book or podcast. So I'm going to go with a book that really helped shape my perspective as I tried to aspire to be more of a business leader, right? And that was a book called Everyday Business Storytelling. Wonderful, wonderful book on how to embrace storytelling, which had traditionally been more of a marketing skill set, soft skill. But in the age of the modern technologist, being able to storytell, speak the language of the business is absolutely critical in your role. And it definitely really separates the high-performing IT professional from the others. So that would be the one that comes to mind.
Well, and Chetan, yours?
Not just for CIOs and CEOs, I would say a book which is for everyone, which is Whole Brain Living by Jill Taylor. This book basically, we feel that right side of our brain is the more creative and emotional, which is more subjective side of brain, and left side of the brain is more analytical, logical brain. But this lady Jill Taylor, she's a neuroscientist, and she had a stroke at the age of 37, and she was lying on bed for multiple years without having, she couldn't even move a single muscle in her body. And one part of her brain was active, and through that part of the brain, she was analyzing the brain and the thoughts that those were coming. And as per her, there are 4 different segments and 4 different characters. So you have got a left emotional, left logical, right emotional, right logical, but they operate in a very different way. Right logical is very different from a left logical. Left logical is more serial. It's more external focused, and it thinks in a serial manner, whereas logical focus is more on a parallel thinking. So basis those 4 characters, if you can develop that thought process and that which part of your brain is operating in any situation, you can actually change your behavior. So it's basically a neuroscientist's perspective on mindfulness.
Perfect. Now, my next question would be where, we'll quickly ask this question. If not in tech, what career would have you chosen?
Oh, that's a really good one. I think if it wasn't for tech, I would have become a math teacher. So I've always loved math. I always loved problem solving, and I always loved coaching and teaching. So I probably would have went that route.
And Chetan, you?
It's funny because I would say, my other career would have been a teacher, either maths or physics.
That's why we get along so well.
Let's start something on that line.
There we go.
You two are perfect for BODHI, Wow. Next question is, if you could automate one part of your daily work with the help of AI, what would it be?
So I don't want to offend anyone on this call, but it would absolutely be leveraging AI to reply to all the cold call emails that I get every day from AI vendors.
Wow. Chetan, yours?
So it will be more like a digital assistant, which can help prioritize my meetings and look at my emails and see what requires my attention and follow up with people on operational stuff so that I can, save at least a couple of hours every day.
Perfect. And let's assume that AI gave you that, boon and you saved a couple of extra hours a day. What would you spend them? And how would you spend them?
Well, my first thought that comes into my mind is more time with my family, who are certainly my why for everything that I do and aspire to be professionally is so I can be there and be the person that I want to be for them. But outside of my family, I would say, more time, volunteering in my local community, and really making an impact. I think one of the big things that drives me is purpose. And I think if I was able to drive more purpose in my life through volunteering, that would, certainly provide me with a lot more fulfillment.
Chetan, yours?
So first of all, if I have to use that time professionally, we are at a growing stage and there are always lot many things to do. And I believe that if I can get a couple of hours extra, I would be able to, do a lot more for the organization. If I look at from a personal perspective, after moving to US, I've started watching soccer with my kids, but I don't get a lot of time, and that's one of my go-to activities for de-stressing. So I would love to do that more often.
Perfect. And with that, thank you so much, Eric and Chetan, for being such a great sport. I'll just quickly move to the question answer. I see there are a few questions which the viewers ask. We only have a limited time, so we'll try to cover as more as possible. But in case we're unable to cover this in time, we'll get back to you over the email. Referring to Eric and Chetan's advice. Okay, the first question is from Vishal Gupta. Chetan, you've spoken about defining problems with the business partners. Do you have any suggestion for where should they start identifying the right problem?
So I think Eric answered this where he said that you don't have to kind of look for problems. There are problems already. When you look at the business processes, when you talk to business users, and you are not distant from the business. So that is one. Second thing which can be done is study the best in your peer group, unless until you are the best. So Eric can say that, Eric doesn't need to study others because maybe Kellanova is the best in the segment, but study the best in the segment. There are always industry leaders in terms of their tech adoption. So study them, look at how they are doing, what they are doing differently and how they are doing that. That may be a great starting point.
Perfect. The next question is from Paula Rosales. She has a question for Eric. CPG should at first manage to have clean data ready to be used. According to that and your experience, what process, capabilities, and tools should be adopted first to make that data through AI really powerful and get the best insight and strategic plans?
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a journey, right? And I think the hardest part is creating the business case around the foundation, right? So it goes back to the art and the science. Is how do you give them a little bit of a taste of what could be possible, right? In an AI world, if you have solid data. So even though, like I said, it's not the sexiest to invest in democratizing your data and making sure you have the right platforms and you have the right ecosystem and you can democratize it. If you can kind of share a little bit of what that could lead to, that gets a little bit more excitement within your organization. You are going to need top-down support for it. It's not something that can be driven bottom up. So if you do not have the champions or the supporters like your CFO or your head of sales or your head of marketing or your head of supply chain, it's really, really tough to go down a data modernization program. I've been very fortunate in my career, whether it be Estee Lauder, Bacardi, or Kellanova now, where we have had good sponsorship. But then, it's capabilities around master data governance that are really, really important. It's, the risk and the compliance side of your data. So there has to be like a legal tie-in too. And then, it's such an evolving space too, but you want to make sure that you have experts that aren't necessarily in IT, but are actually living and breathing this in the business. Great if they're data scientists, but if they're not, still if they're experts on how the data is being used so that you can come together and build out what that future could look like together.
Perfect. We'll take one more question before we end today's session. I see a list of questions on the Q&A. Maybe Eric and Chetan, we'll get back. We'll reach out to you. We'll get these answers and float to the respective viewer. But just one last question before we end today's discussion. How do you ensure ethical decision making and personal accountability when integrating AI technologies into your business strategy, especially in areas where automation could significantly impact human roles? And this question is from Nikhil Bagel.
It's a huge
So,
question.
yeah,
This can be a
go
1
ahead,
hour
Jen.
webinar on that. Yeah, Eric,
I
go ahead.
agree.
A short
No,
answer.
I agree. It's a really so that has to be at the heart of all of it, right? I firmly believe that AI is not going to replace people per se, but it's the people who learn how to leverage it. Chetan mentioned, a co-pilot, right? In his rapid fire, that's really what it's all about. Is somehow bringing that data closer, right, in a more effective way, where you can better make decisions, because it is so easy to mine it and access it and leverage it, right? So to me, it's not about the replacement of people per se. So that shouldn't be the top goal. But to really answer your question, again, this is the importance of the governance side of it, right? And making sure that you're not just going after these use cases without putting it through the proper risk management lens, and that you have made sure that you're protecting the company that you work for first and foremost, and then once the risk is acceptable, then it's on to the technology solution, which, by the way, you would want to bring your enterprise architecture teams in, and you would want to make sure there's governance around that too. So I think having both of those strong governance points are ultimately what's going to help you move faster. So it might feel like it moves slower in the beginning, but then you can move faster once you have that alignment through that governance process.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks, Chetan, for such a rich and insightful conversation. Your stories, reflection, perspectives have been incredibly inspiring and thought-provoking. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. And we are very sorry we cannot take each and every question that you put over the Q&A section. But we hope this session planted the seed of a new idea and maybe even sparked your own Bodhi moment of insight. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for joining in, and thanks for a great session, Eric and Chetan.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Divyanshu. Thanks, everyone.